Aha. Aha. We're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to 50 Toasts. My chance to try to connect with 50 friends over the course of a year. Tony Deyo is my guest. I have a bunch of announcements, so you sit there quietly, Tony, and we'll get to you in just a second. Great comic. I kind of borrowed an idea of his to do this whole thing, and we'll discuss that right off the top. He's also got one of the weirdest side jobs in the history of the universe. There's a teaser. He runs comedian trivia night. He's an interesting character. We're going to get to him in a sec. All right, a few announcements. We do this in this space every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for being here. Andreas is here. My buddy, my brother, my buddy. He's my brother and my buddy. Ron Milford's here. Ron Schultz is here. All right. Mickle Robert. Greetings. Thanks for coming in, guys. We do this in this space. I tried to confirm a guest for next week so I could announce. And he's he's got one of the weirdest jobs in the world, and it's so fascinating to me. And he's a little bit hesitant about coming on. So I won't announce him yet, but I think he's going to say yes. We'll get him maybe next week. Otherwise, I got a slew of other hilarious, funny friends I can grab. Speaking of hilarious, funny friends, nowherecomedyclub.com. I do a show with these guys about once every 9 months, once a year. I don't do it often. I don't want to overdo it. I've been working on it a lot lately. I've been really digging in and writing stand-up, which I haven't done in months. So it's been a pleasure prepping for the show. I promise a totally different hour from the last time I did it. Thursday, February 4th, nowherecomedyclub.com. I'm keeping some good company. Between now and then, they have Greg Proops, Judah Friedlander, Ben Glebe, Todd Barry, Judy Gold. I've been asked by some friends lately, like, what's the best way to support comics? I know this is a screwy year for you guys. You can't even do your regular thing. Like, do this kind of stuff. Come to these shows. It's $10. It's not charity. You'll love it. Zoom comedy show ain't perfect, but it works. We can hear you. You can hear us. It's got some life. You can stay home. You can save money. You can be safe. You don't need a babysitter. You can get hammered. You don't have to drive. You can help comics, and you can have a great night. So nowherecomedyclub.com, February 4th, Super Bowl week. So I'm writing a lot of stuff about me. I'm trying to be a little more personal, which is hard for me. I write like a personal thing, and then I go off on a jag and I write 17 jokes about allergies. And then I come back and try to write about me again. It's very challenging, but I'm working on it. What are the other announcements? All Pro Lines. You like football? You like jokes? You like either one of those? Then you'll love it. And if you like both, then you're really going to love it. At All Pro Lines, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Come join us. That's enough of the announcements. Go to patreon.com and type in Kostaki and figure out how to support and join and be and connect and all that stuff. Let's get to Tony Deyo, good friend of mine. I've known you forever. Tony Deyo, ladies and gentlemen, Tony Deyo. Am I the only one who claps here? I think so. Tony Deyo, everybody.
I can't clap for myself, right? That would be
weird. Yeah, that's all right. You love you. That's good.
Of course I do.
All right, so weird opening, but one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, a few years ago, you told me that you had a scheme, you had a plan,
yes,
to have lunch with a comedian every week. Try to do it every week.
Yeah.
How long did you do that?
I don't remember how long I did that. I do know this. I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah, right.
Although you found a way to keep doing it, which is great. No, I think I stopped somewhere around the time I had my son. And it just, you of course know the list of tasks that get jammed onto the list and the ones that get immediately jettisoned.
Yeah.
When you have a kid.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Lunch with comedians might have been the first one to go.
Yeah, especially, in this year, you can't even.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the kid's not in school, right? You're home?
No, yeah. Well, he's been home since March.
Right. Yeah. My kids too.
It's funny that I was excited for about 30 seconds when all comedy shut down, no shows, no booking, and like nothing's gonna happen. I'm like, oh, I can write that script that I started writing. And then I rememred, oh, right, I have to take care of a 7-year-old.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
probably going to take a lot of the time. That's the thing. People who don't have kids are like learning another language, and
I know.
You see these things about, Sir Isaac Newton developed his best work when he was in quarantine from the Black Plague or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I bet he didn't have a fucking kid. That's all I'm saying.
If you don't have a kid and you aren't halfway to a Nobel Prize in physics during this quarantine,
right.
you have completely wasted your time.
Yeah, that's right. We should reframe it. If you don't have a kid, you're the one who's failing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a challenge for everybody, but with kids, it's preposterous.
Yeah.
But I like this idea so much. And for me, it wasn't really about comics as much as people, because I lived in New York City and I was working on trying to be a great dad, a great husband, and a great comic. And those don't always line up very well. So I would go to Indiana and make my money telling jokes. And I would come home and I'd try to be super dad. And I realized I was in New York City with some of the greatest, most interesting, creative, smart people. And I knew tons of them, but I never saw them. So when you told me this lunch idea, I was like, oh, I love that so much. I can't do it every week, but I could probably do it 50 times in a year.
Yeah.
So that was my goal. I did a thing called 50 lunches, and I tried to see if I could connect with 50 people that I liked or thought I liked and didn't know very well.
Right.
Because some weeks I was on the road and I was doing radio and it just taking care of a kid, it just wasn't possible. I would go 3 weeks and not do it at all. And then 1 week I would have 4 different meetings with characters that I knew. I'd have some time and I'd run all over the city meeting people. It was great.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's definitely the best thing I did in New York. Tied with Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it was you. It was totally you. So then I'm totally giving you credit. It was absolutely your notion, and I stole it and borrowed it and twisted it and bastardized it. And then when the pandemic came, Jimmy Pardo was my first cancellation. I was supposed to have lunch with Jimmy Pardo in LA. And we had been trying to figure out a date for so long. And I said to my wife, I'm just going to do this one last thing. And I'm not going to shake his hand. And it was mid-March. And she kind of looked at me and, you're going to do what? You're going to go to lunch? What are you doing? And Jimmy calls me and goes, yeah, I'm not coming. I was like, that's probably best. So I wanted to keep the idea alive, especially after a month or so of talking to no one.
Right.
So that's how we ended up with 50 Toasts.
Great.
I pitched it to a friend of mine. He goes, yeah, but eating on camera sucks. It can't be lunch anymore.
Right.
And so I made it toast, and for the first several, I opened with a toast, and we kind of talked about what we were drinking. And most of my friends don't drink anymore, and it got a little bit heavy-handed with the drinky part. So I was like, just let that. You know how Seinfeld started with him doing stand-up, and then they eventually were like, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah,
same thing. So 50 Toasts exists, and it's all because of you, Tony Deyo.
This is great. Well, I take all the credit for this. Quite honestly, I'm sure I stole the idea from someone myself. So.
It's such simple. I highly recommend the viewers steal this idea.
Yeah.
Do some. We had a thing one time in the backyard a few weeks ago, and then we were worried that there was something that happened, and maybe one of us got sick, and the whole thing. But whatever. So I decided not to do that again, even though we're outside and we were super cautious, and I delivered the food and no one shared, whatever. So last week I did a big Zoom call with like 12 of my friends that I just haven't seen. We all like piled in there and nobody wanted to leave. We were there for like 6 hours.
Wow.
We drank beers. We started at 8:30 and like 2:15. I was like, I gotta go but what are we doing? This is crazy. So it's fun. Connect with your people, whatever your form is. I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And if you have some sort of a shticky system like this, then it sort of forces you to do it.
Yeah. And it gives you an excuse that you don't even feel weird at asking people. You're like, hey, I'm doing this thing.
That's right.
Do you mind?
That's right. Because if I just called you and go, maybe you and I could drink some beer and talk on Zoom, you'd be like,
yeah, sure. We'll do that sometime.
I got a kid and I'll get back to you in a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's great, man. Thanks for coming on. I miss you, buddy. This is one of my favorite things, is to get to talk to like genuine friends that I used to hang out with.
Yeah, it's been a while.
How's New York? Is it weird?
Not really. You know, I live over here in Queens, so it feels like the suburbs, and it's
suburbs of Athens.
Well, not the suburbs that most people are used to, but New York City terms. I mean, I have a koi pond in my front yard, so it doesn't Get any more burby than that, right?
You do have just a tiny bit of burbiness in the
Yeah.
middle of the biggest city in the country.
I've got a yard that's just big enough that I can't mow it with a weed whacker. I have a koi pond and a peach tree. And I mean, could you really ask for more than that? Even in the burbs?
That's nice. It's a Georgia boy. I approve of the peach tree. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. So, yeah, for the people who are watching who didn't get the reference, like Queens is sort of famously the Greek part of New York City.
Yeah, very much.
And you can walk down the street and hear Greek pretty regularly in Queens.
Yeah.
And literally you just walk by and whatever, like the dentist's name is like, well, that's a ridiculous name. You know, it's 14.
It doesn't look like English at all.
Right. It's actually very heartwarming for me to see the foods and hear the language, even though, you know, I don't really know the language very well. To hear it like comforts me. It's nice.
Yeah, it must sound right in your ear.
Yeah, it's like, it just takes me back to a happy family time, you know, just to hear Greek.
Yeah.
All right. I have lots to talk to you about. I'm just going to dive in, and there's no real format, and you can tell me to fuck off if there's anything that's too personal.
I've never done that yet, but
well, it's early yet. You know. All right. You did Conan 2013.
I did. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's one of the big feathers in a comic's cap. It's high credibility, high praise. Like, that's awesome, man. Like, they're tough filter to get through.
You know, it's funny. It's weird that you mentioned that, because just today I sent an email to that segment producer that booked me on there, because, you know, that show is ending. He's going to HBO. Who knows what that format's going to look like? But it was, you know, for a comedian's career, like, I was on the track to be a journeyman middle act for the entire rest of my life. You have to have something like that that elevates you. And so I emailed the segment producer today. I'm like, look, you changed my career and you changed my life, and I'm forever grateful.
Oh, that's great. That was today?
Yeah, that was today. Like 6 hours ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
That you mentioned that.
Wow. So so to use your language, how does a journeyman middle act with no significant representation wind up on Conan? That's amazing.
You're right. And it was, you know, when we started, and certainly every generation of comedian before us had a hard time getting through the gatekeepers. And I would say almost
Still
right.
do.
Yeah, exactly. Right up until about the time that I got on, it sort of felt like you needed an agent, or you needed someone that would, you know, with a much more clout in the industry than you, to go to bat for you. And I sent a blind email, no recommendation. Here's a YouTube link. And it somehow worked.
That's great.
Yeah, he emailed me back. He said, "Thanks for sending this. I liked this joke, this joke, this joke, this joke. Can you record those in a row and send them back to me?" So I called in a favor at Helium Comedy Club down in Philly. I said, "Hey," oddly, I knew the owner before he owned the club, which is completely other story that we can get to if you want.
I know that guy. That's so weird.
Yeah,
I have a weird thing with him too. He did my website when he was a new club owner, but he wasn't really making money as a club owner yet. He was doing websites.
Yeah, it'll be silly if we come back to it, so I'll tell it real quickly. I middled for Brian Regan at the Baltimore Improv a million years ago, and a guy and his wife came up and talked to me after the show. I'm sure they wanted to talk to Brian, but he doesn't pop out and do meet and greets. So you get to meet and greet with the middle act.
Yeah,
everyone loves. And he said he was thinking about opening a comedy club, and I talked to him and his wife for about 45 minutes about what I thought went into a good comedy club, and then years later, got a Facebook message from a guy. He goes, "Hey, did you middle for Brian Regan back in whatever year?" And I said, "I'm the only one that knows I did that. Who are you?" My name's Mark. I opened Helium Comedy Club. I talked to you after the show. And so anyway, that's how that came about. So I've known Mark a long time. And I text him. I'm like, "Hey, man, I got this cool opportunity. Is there any way possible I can run down to Philly and do some guest spots this weekend to try to get a tape?" Because I wasn't in any comedy club in New York City. There was no place that I could call in a favor in New York.
Right.
So, and the other thing too, I have this theory about how um, like you can't make one of these tapes where a person has to imagine what a big crowd sounds like. Like,
Yeah. Right.
it's you gotta do it in front of a crowd, like a real audience. So I knew I had to go to a real comedy club and in
Right.
front of a big room, and so that's why I went to Philly. I drove through a crazy rainstorm, got there literally when I'm supposed to be walking on stage, and I couldn't have bombed this set harder.
Oh yeah. Nice. Did you get a tape of that?
Oh, of course I did. But I had one more show that night. Lucky it was a Friday night. There was 2 shows, and for whatever reason, Late Show Friday, as bad as its reputation was unbelievable.
That's great.
So I sent that set back to him. He said, "That's the set. I'll have you on by September." And
Wow.
it was
That never happens.
never. And
For-
it is so rare. I thought I was being punked.
Wow, that's so
It was
cool.
2 emails. And, you and I both have known people that went through the process at Letterman where they transcribe your set and tell you they don't like this comma. Can you take
That's
out
right.
one
Yeah.
half
It's
of a
very
millisecond?
labor intensive. Right.
Yeah, and it was just too easy for me. No one said anything about my wording or the order, and I was like, "I don't know if I think this is really happening." And so I decided I wasn't telling anyone about it until it showed up on their website. And, my date got booked. It was, they emailed, they said, "We have September 11th and September 13th." I'm like, "Maybe not the anniversary of a national tragedy, if that's okay."
I mean, I'm used to bombing on First Show Fridays, but I don't want to be associated with the
Yeah,
greatest terror event in the history of America.
right. So I took the 13th, and, I they went on, like, hiatus in August, and I still wasn't on the website. I'm like, "I don't even know if this is happening." But I still remember I was driving out to to do the Lucy Fest, the comedy fest in
Oh
Jamestown, New
yeah,
York,
yeah,
and
yeah.
if you've driven out there from New York, it's about 6 hours, and there's a large stretch of the, drive you're out of cell service, and I happened to pop back into cell service, grab my phone. I can still, when I drive out there, I know the spot that I was. When I opened my phone, I saw that I had the date, and it was on their, calendar, and I was like, "I can't believe this is actually happening."
That's great. Now,
Yeah.
do they talk to you about what you're wearing? Are there any other? They just send you
They were
hotel
pretty
information?
loosey
Like,
yeah, they were pretty loosey-goosey about it. They said it is television, so keep that in mind, but at the time, I was already wearing a suit all the time
okay,
anyway, so that was absolutely no question in my mind,
right,
a suit up.
right. But you, in your head, you're like, I'm wearing the A suit. Like you get,
Yeah,
you know what suit,
with
you
a
know
good
what
one.
shirt, you know
Yeah,
all the thing. You got it all in your head. That's already settled.
yeah, that's settled.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah,
See, I think I would have to go through the rigmarole with that. Like, oh, what am I gonna? How do I? Yeah,
yeah.
right.
And I'm the sort of
Um,
guy, I get a good suit, and then I just wear the hell out of it for about 2.5 years or so, and it
yeah.
just that's the road suit, that's the, go suit.
All right. So, okay, indulge me. Keep going through this process. So then, now you're working the set like you know exactly that set. You've got that.
Yeah.
What is it? 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, somewhere around there, maybe 4:45, and this leads into a very long story, but we've got time, so I'll tell it.
Yeah.
Um, at, so at Conan, they were like, just as with the, sort of the process and the what you're gonna wear and everything, they were loose about it. They were also loose about the time on television. They said, or the segment producer, when we go through the dress rehearsal, this is where you're going to stand. You come out of this curtain. There's going to be a guy there giving you time, like signals. And he goes, "I want you to ignore him completely." He goes,
That's
"You know
nice.
how long this is supposed to last. If you go over, it's because you're getting more laughs, and we'll worry about that later."
That's great. That's a
Yeah,
good producer.
yeah, it was great. And cut to 5 months later, I was doing the Late Late Show, and we go to their dress rehearsal, and they're like, "Here's your mark. There's the time guy. He's going to give you a sign for 30 seconds. He's going to give you a sign for 15 seconds. And then he's going to hold
Jesus.
up the sign that has an X on it. That means you're not on television anymore."
Wow.
They said you need to land within 5 seconds of either side of that. Like,
What?
that's
It's not
so.
even possible.
I know. It's that was that was a little bit more of a stressor.
Wow.
But yeah, going back to Conan, it was they were great about everything. It couldn't have been an easier first crack at it.
But that speaks to the top downness of the operation. There's a Menchie dude at the top of this pyramid, right?
Yeah.
And so do you freak the fuck out? Like when does that hit you? Like when
A
you're in
little
that
bit.
drive in Pennsylvania, like, oh God, I'm actually going to do television.
Yeah, a little bit. But I had time. I had about a month that I knew it was a for sure thing. So I started, doing spots in New York, just running. And it's easy once you have that, I'm doing this television show on this date. It's a little easier to, email bookers and get some spots and things.
Right. They're
So,
empathetic and they feel like they're dealing with someone who's, something's going well.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Maybe we've overlooked this guy for the last 7 years that he's been living here in town.
That's almost the reason you do Conan, is so you can call those fucking guys
Yeah,
and go,
so
I'm doing Conan.
Finally send my avails to
Right.
in New York.
That's right. Oh, that's great. All right. So day of. So
Yeah.
do you sleep the night before?
Well, this is funny too, because this adds another odd wrinkle into the equation. My wife was pregnant at the time, and
No, I
up
didn't put all
until
that
the
together.
moment that I had booked a date, I didn't know anyone who had delivered a baby early. I hadn't talked to anyone. As soon as the date was on the books, everyone I talked to was delivering their babies a month early. And this was set for 2 weeks before my baby. So as soon as it's on the calendar, just everything I heard was, yeah, I was 3 weeks early. I was 3.5 weeks early.
Right.
So Carrie Ann was too far along in the pregnancy. She couldn't travel with me. So I went out to LA and I brought with me a friend of mine from college and actually a friend of Carrie Ann's from high school who works in the business. And they both came with me to the show. And I told my buddy, I'm like, at this point, I'm going to turn off my phone. And there's an hour where I can't make it back to New York. So no matter what news comes, I don't want to know about it. I need to do this thing to the best of my ability. But luckily, Carrie Ann had a doctor's appointment that day. So I woke up that morning. The doctor said it's not happening today. So I was
that's good to hear.
Clear. And so we all meet up over at the Warner Brothers lot. And I was there pretty early, as you would have a tendency to do.
Yep.
And they sent me over to like a little TV museum they had on the lot, which was fun.
Are you in shorts and a t-shirt and you got your suit like this, or are you wearing the shiny shoes and the whole thing?
No, I can't even remember what I went there in, but I brought the suit.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get golf carted around the Warner lot in my suit.
It's good. But you're shaved and you're worried about your hair and you're like, oh God, I hope I don't forget the first fucking 2 words, like your head's scrambled all day, right?
Exactly. Even in the museum, you're just walking around, you're completely in your head and going over that first line that you got.
Right.
And so at some point I was like, can we just go back to the dressing room? So we go back to the dressing room and Patton Oswalt's on the same show.
Oh, nice.
And so he pops in and says hello, and I get pictures with him. And I knew that he had grown up in Virginia, and myself and the 2 friends I was with, we were all from Virginia. So we got to talk about that for a minute. And then let's see. Yeah, you go do hair, makeup, and everything. And so Patton's the first guest. Robert Reich, who was the labor secretary during
Oh,
Bill Clinton's administration. Is
he's
guest
like this. He's this.
yes, small in stature.
Yes, that's right.
The way, uh, which as tall as Conan is, that makes a
Oh God, Conan is. I mean, he comes across as tall on TV, but when you're standing next to him, it's like, oh my God,
yeah, it's even crazier.
it's crazy how tall he is.
So anyway,
Plus hair.
Robert Reich is there. He's promoting a documentary about inequality in America.
That's fun.
And yeah, when I saw that show up on the schedule too, I actually emailed the segment producer. I'm like, "Hey man, I'm a little worried about the lead-in," which is not my concern, and well above my pay grade to even ask that question.
Wait, it's Patton,
Yeah.
then Robert, then you?
Yes.
That's interesting. It's
Yeah.
quite a sandwich.
Yes. And he said, "Don't worry about it. We do this all the time. We know what we're doing." I'm like, "Yeah, of course you." I'm sorry I even asked. I shouldn't.
Yeah, that sounds like the right answer.
Yeah.
Stop it. You'll be fine.
So, have you ever been over there to Conan? Like in the studio, they like all the dressing rooms surround this sort of middle area where they have a TV, and all the writers
Right.
sit and watch the show. And there's a normal amount of energy in there the entire time. And at some point while Robert's on with Conan, I go into my dressing room and put my tie on in my bathroom. And when I come out, it's dead silent. Just silent. Like the zombie apocalypse had come through while I was putting on my tie and I missed it.
This is what's happening? This is your head? This is some weird thing in this
No,
universe?
it's a real depressing segment.
Oh, Robert Reich. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Right,
it was
right.
bumming everyone out.
Yeah.
And it's dead silent. I walk out of my dressing room and the segment producer's standing right there and I don't say anything. He goes, "Don't worry, it's gonna be fine."
But the Conan audience is great. They can bounce back from that, right? They're fine.
That's what happened. That's not what was going through my head at the time. And in my head is, I can't believe I'm getting ready to bomb on national television. Because we've all, it's comedians. We've all done the charity fundraisers for like a cancer or something, and somebody gets up and tells a story about their kid dying, and then they're like, "And comedy."
Yeah, right. And this guy.
Yeah, that's what I felt like I was walking into. So I start losing it, man. And when I get nervous, I just start pounding water like obsessively. And they finally they come get me. The production assistant comes gets me. They're like, "All right, you gotta come get on your mark." So I follow them. They keep taking my water away from me. I keep taking it back from them. I'm standing, and that producer had known how much he could tell I'm about to lose my mind, and I think he went and talked to Conan. And so during the commercial break, Conan pops back behind the curtain. He's like, "Hey, man, don't worry about that. I think you're funny. You're going to do great. They're going to love you. Don't worry about it at all."
That's nice.
Like, all right. That's the best I can hope for.
But does that make you more nervous because it's Conan now? You were just focused on you, and now you got to impress Conan O'Brien, for the love of God?
Well, you kind of know you got to do that anyway.
Yeah. Or is it more like, "Oh, I'm good. It's the guy who understands comedy, and it's sometimes hard, and we're going to be fine." And right.
It was something in between there.
Yeah.
Because you still have to go out and follow that. So you hear the band playing, the band plays them back in, and you've sort of run this moment in your head a million times already. And
Right.
like I saw the cue cards, I knew exactly how they're going to announce me.
Don't fall down.
Yeah.
Don't fall down. Don't stammer. Don't say the wrong thing.
The other thing I had to worry about is I had talked to everyone I know who had done the show, and they all said your first joke is not going to land the way you want it to. That's going to be a little bit less because with this show, up until this point, Conan has been the focus. Even when he's with a guest, he's right there. Everyone's focused on him. Then you come out and they have to take their focus and turn it completely away from him and watch you.
Right. And they literally try to help the audience with lighting. He's there, but they turn it way down on him.
Right.
And you're in the bright TV lights.
Yeah. And it's like, look at this guy that's not Conan that you didn't come to see.
Right. That's right. That
So
you've never heard of and you have no idea
never
what's
heard of.
happening. Right. That's right.
So they warned me, and everyone said the same thing. And so I kind of knew that was coming. I'm worried about the lead in. I go out, I start telling the first joke, and they actually start laughing during the setup.
Wow, that's
And
great.
what occurred to me pretty quickly was, oh, they didn't come here to be bummed out either. They came to laugh. They're kind of they're ready for this to not be
Yeah,
depressing.
TV crowd. They're generally great.
Yeah,
Right.
and they ended up being fantastic.
That's great. And you were fantastic. Do you look back and go, I stumbled over this, or I hesitated too long here? Or...
I look back on it now, and it was a good it's a good snapshot of who I was as a comedian at the time. But we're 7 or 8 years on now. I'm not a different comedian, but I tell a different sort of joke now. Those all felt like kind of like jokey jokes to me, which for whatever reason kind of work really well on TV. And I'm not like embarrassed about it, but I definitely look back and it's like I wouldn't tell a joke like that again.
Oh, that's interesting. But that day you were like, I did it. I'm good. I'm funny.
Yeah.
I didn't fall down. Everything went great. Yeah.
That day you couldn't be more proud.
That's cool, man. Well, congrats. What a cool story. I appreciate you sharing all that. That's cool.
Flew home and my son was born 1 week late. So he didn't cut it too close.
Yeah, it's good. That was a nice one.
Yeah.
All right. I love that. Yeah, it's I think that's interesting. I mean, that's a long story and I loved every second of it. And I think the viewer maybe didn't know how much goes into a TV set. And you actually got a set in a way that was much quicker than what normally happens.
That was the easiest way you can get one.
I went around and around. I had this weird moment where I did a set at the Ice House in Pasadena years ago, and I was working on a TV set. I was there trying to get a set to send to TV producers.
Right.
And the guy that books the Tonight Show came up to me, like this tells you how long ago it was. It was literally a VHS tape.
Oh,
and he literally handed it to me. And it was one of those magical sets where like all the jokes worked and exactly the set. Like I was like, oh, maybe I could actually turn this into a TV set.
Yeah.
And the sound guy handed me the tape and he goes, hey, good set, man. And in my head, I'm like, that was a good set. Finally, I'm going to have a tape. And I turn and the guy that books the Tonight Show was there. And he shakes my hand and he goes, you're great. Where have you been? Who are you? Tell me your story. He goes, can I get a tape on you? And I was literally holding one. And I go, here.
No way.
Yeah. And we talked for a year.
Wow.
This segue, not this. I like this joke. This isn't the closer. Yeah. It was crazy. It took, and at the very end of this thing, he literally goes, I think this is the set. And I started to think about what I was going to wear on the Tonight Show. And the next week they fired him.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And the new guy goes, I never heard of you. Send me a tape. And I was like, it's like a fucking sketch about show business.
Can you just look in the other dude's office? I know.
That's why I was like, we did all the notes and it's the perfect set. And it was.
Yeah.
But they have a different, it's like anything. It's, you're not the coach that drafted the player. This is not your guy. Right.
Yep.
So now I'm in this pile of guys they've never heard of all over again.
Right. Yeah, you're back.
He didn't have the experience of never hearing of me and happened to see me do a perfect TV set right in front of him. He was not biased towards me at all. Never got on.
Yeah.
Shit. That's the more standard story of show business.
Yeah. Yeah. There's 1,000 of those.
Right. And we all have the ups and the downs and I can't believe this great thing happened and oh shit, I almost had a great thing and then didn't. That's the nature of the whole crazy process.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's shift gears. I want to talk to you about your crazy job, your sort of job that you do part of a year.
Yes.
So to give some background, you're a music nerd, right? You're a band dork. And you played instruments and you love music and like your whole life, right?
Yeah, my whole life. was just a marching band nerd, and I went to college and got a degree in music education, and went to UNLV and got a master's in percussion performance, and then went down to Texas and started teaching band down there. And that's when I started comedy. But yeah, my whole previous life was music.
Right. So let's come back to sort of the connective pieces later, but tell people what you do. I mean, I've seen it. I'm impressed by it. I find this fascinating.
So the simplest way to explain it is I choreograph how marching bands move around on the field during their performances.
I love it. No one's ever thought of that, heard of that. No one is not near that. It never even occurred to them. There's a guy who does that.
Yeah.
And it's an intricate, beautiful process.
It is. Yeah. I'm actually oddly doing it right now because all of the shows in the fall got canceled. But I have a school that just decided to do spring marching band. And so I'm writing a show right now.
Oh, that's interesting. Usually you do you carve out a couple of months in the summer and you're working 50, 60 hours a week doing marching band stuff.
Yeah. In the old days when I was doing when marching band shows was my living and comedy was my hobby, I would basically just leave comedy for 2 months and write band shows.
It's perfect because people who might not know, those are the worst 2 months in comedy in North America.
It's going to work anyway.
It's nice outside and no one in Michigan is going inside that month. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So it is.
Yes.
It's a very sort of beautiful art, and it combines a couple of things I'm really good at, which is music and geometry and math, and it all turns into this really beautiful thing that people didn't even know was needed a job for.
I know, it's so fascinating to me. All right, so I'm going to ask you all the dumb guy questions. I know a little bit of this because I've talked to you about this before, but it's been a while, and I find this whole thing so interesting. So the basic construct is a high school band needs to have a show to do at football games, and then even maybe more importantly, to go do it at a competition, right?
Yeah. They perform at football games on Friday nights, and then they go compete on Saturdays. And
okay,
that's kind of just the standard across the board.
And they know what the songs are and bring them to you and say, let's do a thing. How much direction do you get?
It depends almost wildly based on the school. And when I really started kind of wanting comedy to be my career, I decided I was going to focus on less competitive high school marching bands, the ones that weren't trying to go to the national championships in Indianapolis and be the Bands of America world champion. Those are I mean, the guys that write those shows are geniuses, and but it's a full-time, that's their everything, is that world. And I really wanted to be a comedian. So I'm like, let me focus on the schools that are not that want a good show. They want to go compete. They want to do well, but they're not trying to blow the doors off anything. So what a school will do is they will pick their music, and they'll figure out exactly how many kids they're going to have playing each instrument. I'm going to have 12 flutes. I'm going to have 15 clarinets, 2 trumpets, 30 color guard.
And they send me seems like a little heavy on the flute.
There's too many clarinets for my taste, but
I didn't want to say anything about that. I had the same thought about it.
And then they sort of tell me basically how difficult of a show they want, and I kind of take it from there.
Wow. This is a weird question. I probably should ask you the other 7 ones first, but do you ever do a thing that even smacks vaguely of social commentary or politics? Has that ever popped up?
It happens, not for me. I know. I'm trying to think of what shows people have done some September 11th shows and things like that.
MLK sort of Black Lives Matter kind of messaging anywhere in this kind of a thing?
That will probably start showing up this coming year. and especially it's easier, oddly, for a almost kind of under the same umbrella, but there's a thing called winter guard, which is just basically just the color guards in a basketball on a basketball court or whatever, and they have kind of an easier time taking on things like that than a marching band does.
Right.
Mostly because they're doing it just for the art. They don't have to go perform at a Friday night football game. So
Right.
they don't have to make a football crowd happy and a competitive panel of competitive judges.
Yeah, that seems like two very different judges in the world.
Yeah,
That's
it is. And there's people that do that very well. They find a way to build shows. I used to write for a very small school down in Alabama that was great at it. They program music that people got excited about on Friday night, and we pulled off shows that were still impressive on Saturdays.
that's great.
Yeah.
Does it work? Is it word of mouth? It's like, you got to get this Deyo kid. He's great with the thing.
Yeah,
And
kind of. I used to advertise when I first started out, but it definitely became a thing where I didn't have to anymore. I write as many shows as I want, and now I'm trying to sort of scale it back a little bit.
right. So interesting. That's cool, man. So you're still doing it here and there, and then kind of heavy in the summer, and then
Yeah, and I've backed like there was one summer I wrote maybe 22 high school band shows, and that was it was insane. I remember I worked 100 days straight without a day off. I took
wow.
one half day carry in. I went to the beach, and as soon as we got there, it started raining, and I just wanted to cry because I only day off. And I remember because I used to keep an office where I would go. I just found it easier to not work out of the apartment because when your bed is 4 feet away from your desk, there's
Yeah.
the temptation to nap is a whole lot harder.
Yeah. Right.
And oh yeah, I got to do the laundry, and I forgot I got to do that thing. But if you have an office to go to, then it's easier to sit down and do work. So I
That's
went
cool,
to
man.
this office for 100 days straight, and I remember I would bike out there and bike back, and I remember biking home in September, the first night the weather had changed, and I was like, I missed the entire summer. I can't believe
Wow.
it was a little bit of a bummer because I love summer.
That's so interesting. I have some buddies who have been like big time sitcom writers, and that's how they report life. Like you have to schmooze and kind of weasel your way into this sort of job, and when you finally get it, you're in it, and they bring you food, and you're in this situation hours, 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 and then the next day hours, 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 and then you wake up and the year is over.
Yeah.
And there's something very like that was part of the reason that for me I was like, maybe I don't want that as much as I did for a while, you know?
No, I'm the same way. Like even I think Seinfeld used to call it going into the submarine, where like you
Right.
would start the season and then not come up for air until it was done, and that
Yeah.
for a single guy in his late 20s, early 30s, that it's probably fine, but I can't even fathom that now.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting. I mean, at least in that situation, you're doing great work. It's something that's creatively fulfilling, and
Yeah,
but even still, it's just an exhausting, weird life, just to be in this odd bubble with these characters and then
yeah,
not really see much of the light of day for a long time.
yeah.
We got a bunch of people chiming in here. Oh, John Riggs, what's up, man? Uh, Michael Buchanan says, I like rye toast. Please talk about rye toast. This is the kind of fans I get, Tony Deyo. Hello from Toledo. Ron Schultz says your set's on YouTube. If anyone wants to check it out, the one that we discussed at length, the
Yep.
Conan set. Ron has a follow-up question. Was it easier with Ferguson in the late show? You sort of answered that. I guess not.
You know what? An interesting sort of like side story to when I was telling you how easy it was for me to get on Conan. It was actually easier to get on the late show.
Because you had done Conan, now you had some credibility?
Yes, but I didn't even submit for it. They called me and said, "Hey," they called me on a Monday and said, "Can you do the show on Wednesday?"
What?
Yeah.
And you didn't submit for it?
I didn't submit for it. What had happened, which I figured out later, was they had just switched. Same situation as you, except I was on the good end of it. They had just changed bookers, And this booker, I think they said immediately, you have to find some comedians. I think she just went and started watching Conan sets, and she's like, "Oh, that guy's good. I'll take him."
Wow.
Called me on a Monday. Can you be here on Wednesday? I'm like, do you need to know what jokes I'm doing? And she's like, yeah, we'll go over them that day.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really laissez-faire. That's interesting. I've never
Yeah.
even heard of that. When I did a Showtime thing, they were very much like, "No, we want you to do whatever." I go, "Is it okay if I go?" "No, you whatever you do." I was surprised that they were very much like, "Do whatever you want."
Yeah.
Which is a good experience. But for a network show, it's really unusual.
Yeah, I
And
don't.
so
I think I was the second comedian she had put on, so I don't think she'd really even like had time to get into the sort of way it works yet.
the process, that's
Right.
nice. It's like you sneak in a loophole before
That's exactly what I
the
did.
system locks down. That's great. Now, did you do a totally different set?
Yes. You know what was crazy, and this is why JP over at Conan was such a great guy. Is when they asked me about it to come to Ferguson, I actually texted. I told the lady, I'm like, "Can I call you back in 10 minutes?" I should have just said yes while I had her on the phone.
Yeah, right.
Can I call you back? Because it was completely out of the blue. I had a 5-month-old baby. This is in 2 days, and so I called Carrie Ann. I said, "Can you handle life for a couple of days?" But she's like,
Yeah.
"Of course." You know, I don't know, why would you even ask? And then I texted JP. I'm like, "Hey, man, you know, you gave me my shot. They've asked me to do this other show. I'm loyal to you to the end of the days. Is it okay?" He said, "Of course. There's lots of shows, and I'm happy that you're going to do another one." And then he texted me back 10 minutes later, and he's like, "Here's the jokes from your first submission that we didn't use that I think make a good set." And
Oh,
he
wow. That's
put
nice.
my set together for me for the next one.
Wow.
It was fantastic because I didn't even begin to have time to start thinking about that. And
Wow.
so I called Delta, made a flight. I called in some favors to run the set like 4 times in New York that night. And I bombed all of them.
Oh, wow. That's tough.
Yeah, I went on the Craig Ferguson show not having done the set successfully, but I had done all the
That's
jokes
amazing.
enough to know that they were good.
Right.
And like I knew I had a set time. And so on the day of the show, I paced in my friend's kitchen in LA for about 3 hours, just going
Yeah.
over what I knew the laughs sounded like in my head. And I sort of credit this to my music background. I know the rhythm of what that laugh sounds like, and I know how long it's supposed to take. So
Wow.
I
That's
put
so
the set
cool.
together in a kitchen.
Yeah. Right. That's great. Yeah, see, that's the when you were talking about going to Philly, I was like, of course you go to Philly. The clubs in New York, I mean, you get 11 people and 7 of them are from Iceland. Like you
Right.
can't,
Yeah. Yeah.
the clubs are so hot cold. Sometimes
Yeah.
they're great, but
Yep.
sometimes you just like, this is the best club in the country. This is awful.
There's television shows about this place.
I know it's they're challenging. New York
Yeah.
City comedy is a challenge. People don't know that. They think of it as the Mecca, and in some ways it is. I mean,
Yeah.
magic happens when Seinfeld came in and did a set in front of me once at Stand Up New York. I mean,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen when you're in whatever, Philly.
Right.
But the situations are very challenging. Well, that's good that
Yeah.
you could stay above the fray and do some self-talk and be okay with it all that way. That's
But you don't really have a choice.
yeah, that's right. Here's a
You're
name drop.
already in
I
the
was talking to Amy Schumer sort of before she became Amy Schumer, because she had done some TV recently and done really well. And I had done some TV recently and my nerves sort of got the best of me. And so I was talking to her about how do you keep your head straight? And she just goes, "You don't have a choice."
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Yeah, okay. And then like I didn't have a chance to follow. I wanted to talk to her about this more. She was just so matter of fact about it. Like, well, you don't
Yeah.
really, you have to go do it and you're going to do it. So just do it.
Yeah.
It was kind of I mean, it's true. And
Yeah.
it worked out for
Yeah. It's a good way to think about it.
her. She's since done Madison Square Garden.
Yes.
She's done okay for
What if
herself.
that was the thought right before she walked out at Madison Square Garden? Well, yeah, I don't have a choice. I gotta go to Madison
Yeah,
Square
what
Garden.
am I going to do? Suck in front of 20,000 people? No, I'm going to go be funny. Let's do it.
Yeah.
It's funny how much of it's a head game.
Yeah.
Hello from Bowling Green. Hello from Southwest Missouri. Oh my goodness. What is that? Springfield Bob and Tom affiliate? Todd Sell? That's my guess.
Where is
Haven't
that?
been there in a while.
Did you ever do that club out in Missouri? There was like, it was in a big college town.
Yeah, Columbia.
Yeah.
I did it once. I did it one weird special night where they had like a big name on the weekend. I did like Thursday, and I got a bunch of Bob and Tom fans in, and
yeah,
it was fun. I like that place. It's not there anymore.
It's not there anymore. I did it with Greg Warren, which was a lot of fun.
Was it Deja Vu? Is that the name of it?
Yes, Deja Vu.
Yeah. I've done every club, but you can't ask me a question with, have you ever done the club with the, yes, the answer is yes. I've done all of them.
Of course.
Pretty much all of them.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions for Tony Deyo? Chime in. How did you decide to be clean? Was that a Seinfeld influence? Was it so that when you eventually had a chance to do Conan, it was easy for you to pluck from your set and build a good TV set?
Yeah, it was part of that. I definitely, Brian Regan and Seinfeld were guys I watched a lot, and it sort of made sense. And I wasn't super clean when I started, but it, just after years, it gets easier and easier. When you're first starting, you do every joke that you could possibly come up with.
Of course.
And just over time, it got easier to just kind of weed out things. And even to the point, I've gotten to the point where I try not to. I think about, is this going to hurt someone's feelings? And I try not to do that, because I've told jokes in the past where I feel like I may have hurt someone's feelings, and I try not to do that anymore. That's almost more important to me than being clean.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I had a big conversation with my mother about that yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's fascinating. That's probably worth sharing. I think this is interesting. I posted I sometimes done a joke in my act about a female referee, in the NFL. And it's sort of some smirky jokes about women, like, she throws the flag, doesn't tell you why,
Oh, right.
it's that stuff. So I posted a version of that on All Pro Lines, and people were chiming in, and some of the jokes were a little extra off color, and I got a little pushback from a couple of women, and it honestly didn't occur to me that would be, I guess, because when I'm doing stand-up, I've got a lot of credibility, and you see who I am, and I'm clearly not sexist, and I'm thoughtful, and I'm doing some stuff in kind of a smirky, playful way. But out of context on a page, and other knuckleheads are chiming in, and not all the comments are quite so light.
Right.
And the last thing I want to do is be off-putting I'm a feminist. So I grew up in a house where my mom made more money than dad and did all the yard work, and my dad did the cooking and the cleaning, and I've got 2 daughters, and I've always been thoughtful about women and how they fit into the world, and how kind of unfair a lot of their situations are.
Right.
So I had this long conversation with my mom about this. The 2 sides of it are, and it's kind of what comics have to deal with all the time. I don't want to hurt, it's where you're coming from. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. The last thing I want to do is come across as being a sexist jackass in a world that has too much of that already.
Right.
Right. And also I'm like, come on, I've posted like 700 things since this thing started. There's one that you don't like, move on,
Yeah.
We just not have to stop the world every time there's one wince as you're flowing through the internet universe. So somewhere in between those two, the truth lies. And that's constantly the debate for comics,
Right.
Hey, my mom's here.
No way.
So here's what I did. As long as mom's listening too, we discussed whether or not I had one sort of light response, and I decided not to get too responsive because I didn't want to engage this whole tricky subject in front of everybody. And then I thought writing a private message would be a little too much. And today I happened to see that the first ever female ref will be officiating the Super Bowl.
Oh, fantastic.
And the write-up is that she's great, and she's fairly new at this level, but she's just been lights out. And so they gave her this job. And that really, this is no bullshit. I was really touched by that. Like, she's in a man's world, an impossible situation.
Yeah.
And has been nailing it so much that they want to put her at the featured game of the whole league. That's a
cool.
real testament to how good she is at the job.
Yeah.
And for her to survive all of the trickiness that we don't even know about what it is to be a female ref. And
Right.
I was really touched by that. So instead of responding to the other thing, which, you know, is debatable and maybe I should have, I made a thoughtful post about this thing.
Right.
And I feel like that put some balance into it. And it was all earnest. Those jokes that I wrote about female refs, I think, are funny and good and not sexist.
Right.
And I think that saying a thoughtful thing about the first ever female ref in a Super Bowl also maybe helps balance that scale a little bit.
Yeah.
But these are all the things that we're trying to figure out how to not blow all the time. It's a tricky thing being a comic.
Yeah. I think what you said, though, it is so much easier for us when we're on stage and you get to see a comedian in their element doing what they do. It sort of smooths over all the like edges. Whereas, you know, on Twitter and those things, when you, you know, only have a certain amount of characters and it's not even your voice saying it, it's just people reading it and they can read it however they want.
That's right. And they're in a dark place and no one can see them and they respond in a way that's sometimes wildly inappropriate and the context and even the things that we take for granted because we've been doing it so long. You don't open with the female ref joke. You ease into it, right?
Yeah.
You don't open with the thing about race or abortion. You kind of let them like you first and then you talk about things that are a little bit challenging.
Yeah. It's also difficult. It's funny. I was telling my son, explaining to him recently how comedians cannot be offended. Like there's nothing you can say to a comedian that will offend us. So we almost have to run it through the filter of a normal person.
Yeah, that's right.
Let it go out in the world.
That's one of my favorite things about comedians. There's this sort of unwritten thing, like none of the regular rules about being fussy about what funny is apply when two comedians are in a car together, or a green room, or 8 comedians on their way to a thing. Like there's just this mad free for all that none of the social norms are applicable here, and we're allowed to play.
Whoever's the funny one.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting, and there are some comics who successfully and not successfully bring that to a public space, right?
Yeah.
And there's a place for that. I get why that's not always a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, it's an interesting conversation. It always is. Mom said she loved the post. That's good.
That's great.
Ron Milford says they picked the best of the best to officiate the Super Bowl. She's definitely deserving of the opportunity. Yeah, I think that's right. That doesn't feel like a PR move. I feel like they're not going to put her in that position unless she's really good at what she's doing. So
yeah,
kudos to her. That's great, man. You got a Super Bowl prediction? I know you love football as much as I do.
You know, it's funny. This is, I feel like this is maybe the opposite way this happens, but I've started watching a lot more football because my son loves it.
I love this.
Isn't it usually the dad watches football?
Traditionally. Yes, Tony.
My son loves football, so I started watching it this year with him. And I saw Brian Bush says show Buffalo a lot of love. I would love to see the Bills win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. What a great story that would be. It's a shame the Browns are out of it. That was a great storyline too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bills haven't. It's been a minute. You know, it'd be good to see the Bills win.
I think in high school, maybe.
Yeah, you're not that young, but yes, maybe. You just look young. You just look boyish.
Yeah,
in your ways.
Look younger without glasses, but then I can't see anymore. So.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, okay. It's great to talk to you, man. It's been good to hang with you.
Yeah, this has been fun. Check
out Tony Deyo and all the places that you go. Just type in Tony Deyo, Instagram, Twitter at Tony Deyo, TonyDeyo.com.
Tony Deyo. There was a bass player for a Christian band out in Utah, I think, also named Tony Deyo, but I've blown him out of Google.
Oh, good for you. He's a music nerd. Yeah, it's even more.
I felt a little bad about it, but
way to get him, Tony Deyo. Come back here next week, this same space, 9 p.m. on Tuesdays. We always do this thing here. I got a cabal of interesting comics and weirdos with cool jobs and Bob and Tom characters on my list coming up. Do go to nowherecomedyclub.com and watch some of these great shows. Todd Barry's one of the best comics in America. Judy Gold is so good it hurts my feelings. Judah Friedlander is like, when I watch him live, I'm like,
I'm doing that show with Judy.
You're on the show with Judah?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
No, Judy Gold.
Oh, Judy, you're opening for Judy Gold on the Nowhere Comedy Club. Oh, yes. I didn't know that. We should have discussed this before. All right. Well, go see that. That's a perfect one because you'll get the crazy Judy and she'll be fun. And then you get to see Tony Deyo, who you fell in love with here in the last hour.
How about that?
Greg Proops, Steve Hofstetter, lots of great comics. It's a great situation for comics and for the audience. Thursday, February 4th, Nowhere Comedy Club. I will be wrapping up the year that was in the NFL, and I'll be attempting to do more personal stuff that I've never done. You guys are awesome. What's that?
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it should be good. And my opening act is Krista Miola, my wife.
How about that?
How about that? She's been working at it. She did like 3 open mics this week. She's working at it harder than I am. On the computer. She's not out in the world.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take it easy. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.